I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending September the 16th, where I guess it's not only the cattle feeders, but it's also the packers that are slaves to this board. And you know, for the last several weeks, this market's been falling really hard, especially the fat cattle market, but the calf market more than anything seems like here of late. But just falling right out of bed, and fundamentally you could see that because we built our numbers back up, and after going through so many years of just a cyclical culling of herds and short supplies there, we built our supplies back up, and it didn't surprise a lot of us that fat cattle prices were going to come back in line to where they were before all those supplies started getting so tight. But really here this past week, with the board going up so strong and turning this market around, it was just about as surprising as it always is. But it just goes to show that these packers are also a slave to the board, and there was really no fundamental reason that this was the point to where this market was going to turn around and start coming back up. Not to say that it won't fall out of bed this week or next again, but it would be nice if we had some fundamental rules of thumb on what this cattle market was going to do week to week, but we really don't. Just completely a slave to what the board is, and the most of the money and the interest in the cattle board has very little to do with cattle in itself. It's just all about funds, money managers sticking money in and pulling it back out, and whether or not they want to ride it up or ride it back down. And this past week, with the market going up so strong, it mostly had all to do with short speculators jumping out of the market. So they had to buy their way back out to get the market increased. And it was just nice to see that the packers also have to be a slave to that, because there they had worked this market down to $1.05, and it looked like it was going down to at least $1 or maybe sub $1, which has been a long time since we've had cattle down in the 90s. But it looked like that's where it was going, and I think pretty much your whole industry was kind of relegated to realizing that that was what was going to happen, is that the board or the fat cattle cash market was going to continue to fade a little bit, but maybe start finding some support at some point. But all of a sudden the board just started going up, and the packers here last week, in the middle of the week, they're like, hey, things haven't changed, you know, we don't want to give any more for these cattle, but they had to. And luckily your cattle feeders were able to take advantage of some of that, with the real market being so disconnected with what's going on. But you look at your live cattle on the October contract for Monday was up $1.30, Tuesday down $1.02, Wednesday up $1.12, Thursday up $1.15, Friday up 92 cents to end the week at 107.87 for October. That was up 3.47 for the week. You look at the feeder cattle on Monday was up $1.02, Tuesday was down 1.75, Wednesday down 42 cents, Thursday up 1.57, and Friday up $1.25 to end the week at 132.95, which was up only 1.68 for the week. But you look at your fat cattle trade, and they did get out there and start trying to buy some cattle Friday morning. That waited till the end of the week because they're really in disbelief that they were going to have to give more money for cattle. But you know, the cattle feeders kind of put their heads together this time for once, and really came together and made these packers up the ante for these cattle. And for the most part, your live price was $1.10. That's a full $5 higher than the previous week, when even after the board was up pretty much all week except for on Tuesday there, your fat cattle board was only up 3.5, and they were able to gain $5 on a cash basis. That's pretty good haggling right there. Did have some Northern Plains sales a little cheaper than that, a few Nebraska sales at 108, which would have only been $3 higher, and a few your Iowa sales there at 107. But for the most part, your weighted average is going to be a lot closer to $1.10. Your dress sales were almost all at 170, which would also be $4 to $5 higher for the week. Look at your box beef cutout values. They were pretty depressed last week and down quite a bit. Your choice carcasses on the average trade of last week was down 301 at 186.48. Select carcasses on the average trade last week 180.01, which was down 376. Your slaughter turned out to be a little better than what it had looked like at the middle of the week. It didn't look like we were going to hit 600,000, but with a big Saturday again, a 53,000 head Saturday, was able to get it up to 604,000 for the week, which is 26,000 more than the same week a year ago. Look at your feeder cattle prices, and it takes a little bit longer for them to turn around, and they don't all bring the same price on the same day every week. You've got a gradual flow there because you can sell feeder cattle any day of the week. That's the greatest thing about having feeder cattle is their liquidity, because you can pretty much turn them into cash at least 6 days a week somewhere not too far away. But your feeder cattle, yearling feeders, didn't quite get that on a direct basis because it took a while to turn it around. But in your late week sales with some gains you saw there, pretty much firm to $3 higher on your cash feeder cattle. But the calf market is very depressed, and we're just starting to get into your fall calf sales, and it looks like just about the same time that all these heavier supplies come is going to be when there's the most pressure on the market. Calves this week around $4 to $8 lower, and just poor demand for calves right now. And we are moving into the time of the year where it's harder to straighten them up, but guys need calves to dry winter. They're going to need calves to straighten up to put on all this wheat pasture they're going to have in the wet southern plains. Going to be a ton of wheat pasture around, which equals very cheap gains. There's a lot of hay around and cheap ways to put pounds on calves, but the big thing that's hurting the calf market is your fat market for down the road. Your board on the April to June, that gap between there runs over $7. It's from 107.10 on your April board all the way down to just under $1 on your June. And that is figuring back, that's where a lot of these calves are going to be landing in there. But I guess we're expecting a big drop off in the market, your fat cattle market, coming this next spring, and it's really going back. So if you look at that, then you got to expect, if you've got some late fall yearlings, they're going to fall into that hole too. So we can't expect these yearling feeder cattle prices to stay up a whole lot longer, because they're going to get into that same market drop that we have on the calves right now. So your late fall and really winter yearlings could kind of take a beating there. But you look how wet the Midwest is. We've got a bumper crop sitting in the field there, but we just can't get the combines in there to get it out quite yet. The ground's too soft. Had some big rains out there in the Midwest, and got to wait for that ground to firm up before we get out there and start harvesting it. But you look at Cattle Market Central there, and an individual quote there in Creston, Iowa, on a special Friday feeder cattle auction. At 1 o'clock on Friday, Creston sold a load of 796 pound steers at $145 1/4. Check out dvauction.com for your upcoming fall production sales. Got a lot of breeding stock to sell. Of course, we'll have a lot more of them coming later in the winter and in the spring, but there's a lot of guys that have moved into having these production sales in the fall, and go to dvauction.com and check the schedule on those coming up. So from a home office here in Canyon, Texas, we'll talk to you next week.